Okay, this will be video 36. The last three videos I did on part 35, I said it was 34 in the videos, it was 35. Video 34 was actually about why people leave seeker-friendly churches and fall into legalism. Just to go back over that, there's this guy on YouTube, Matt Mason or something, and he had an issue with a pastor in a grace-based church. I actually watched a sermon online with this particular preacher that he was having a go at on his channel. And I actually thought, wow, the preacher didn't seem that bad. The message seemed all right. He seemed a little bit passive aggressive because sometimes, you can spot it. But I thought, that you can actually get a situation where somebody was in a church that might not have been a cult, but because they had a bad situation, and yet, I mean, if you have thousands of people in a group, you're going to get the occasional conflict. But sometimes people will label a church a cult because of their personal experience, right? And I think, I could be wrong, but I think that this Matt Mason sort of falls into that category. It's like the church that he calls a cult, they seem like nice people, but I could be wrong because people could say the same. It's when you get a lot of people calling a group a cult. And how do you know? Because most churches, they might have an issue happen, somebody had an argument. Oh, it's a cult. It seems to be the modern day way of, that's where 36 is here, right? Not everything that people call a cult is a cult, right? And sometimes it's like, well, you have to experience it for yourself to decide whether it's a cult. So cult experts will have a sort of criteria, if you like, of several things to look for. But I thought with this group that this Matt Mason was calling a cult, I watched the sermon and I thought, well, that's the guy. I mean, you could kind of imagine yourself having an argument with that guy. The guy before him was a bit funny, So sometimes this passive aggressive, let's say everybody can have a bad day. Even if you're a nice, honest pastor and you're not conning people out, you could have a bad day. I mean, somebody behind the pulpit, it is like living in a fishbowl. Everybody's looking. If you make one mistake, boom. And it must be quite stressful, even in an honest church, doing an honest sermon that you think, oh God, I might say something that somebody doesn't like, especially in this day and age, because people seem to be super sensitive about everything. You've got left-wing extremism and right-wing extremism, inflation doesn't help making everybody stressed, and then you've got lunatics like Trump and Putin around, and even in the UK, yet another Prime Minister coming along because the last one was, let's be honest, pretty bloody hopeless. So, anyway, that aside, let's talk about video 36. So, right, I think I'm going to cut and paste that there. So, this was one thing that happened to me, right? When I left ICC, right? I thought, okay, let's see who's left and hang out and talk about it, and sort of let's stop the cult. Let's expose the cult online. And quite a few people who leave cults, not everybody, have that sort of feeling, well, I have to warn people against these cults because they wasted my time, they conned me, I lost a lot of money, lost years of my life serving a delusion, serving an evil cult, even though most of the members were nice. There's that dynamic as well. But one of the things I fell foul of, I guess, was this idea that all the ex-members we're all out to help each other. But that's not the case. It was probably about 4 or 5 years ago. I got an email from somebody who, it's like, oh, I really love your channel. I love your videos. And this was another ex-member from the same group, and it's like, we're doing some stuff, do you want to be part of our group? And I thought, yeah, I'd love to. So I emailed them back and we exchanged a few emails. And then, I mentioned the fact that I was an atheist. And suddenly they didn't want to know me. And I find it kind of ironic that, there are people out there who call themselves exit counsellors or deprogrammers or whatever. But, they'll help you if you're still a Christian. And this happens a lot in America. So you might have been in a cult, and it's sort of like they're not really qualified exit counsellors. Even though they might have, this particular guy I'm thinking, he's got a master's degree in sort of psychology and he helps people out of cults, but he doesn't want to help atheists or agnostics. And it's like, okay, so you're a doctor, sort of, but you're only going to choose patients you like. And I found that, in hindsight, of course you'd expect that. Some people, in the UK, it's like, well, I don't get on with that doctor, and then you find a different doctor you do get on with. That's okay. That's okay. But one of the things that I had to recover from people trying to help me recover was the fact that, wow, they don't like people who are atheists or agnostics or question the existence of God. And yeah, that is going to be an issue for some people. Two of my friends, they're both atheists as well. Me, I'm sort of sitting on the fence, but it's like, well, if there's proof, I'll believe. And I'm sure if there's proof of a God, then yeah, I'll believe. But there is no proof, so why would I believe? But it's when you get shunned by ex-members, you sort of join a group of ex-members and you think, yeah, we've got this common thing. We expose the cult, right? And this happened to me with ICOC. There's this guy online, Stephen Hassan was talking to him. I think he's interviewed him a couple of times. And this guy seems to have a deep hatred for atheists. And it's like, so I left the cult and then I've been invited to join this group of ex-members. And then they're all Christian still, right? But somehow I let on that I was an atheist. It's like, oh yeah, Kim McKean, can't even prove God exists. And that triggered them. They're mostly American, so what do you expect? But, that was a strange dynamic of, so then I thought, well, I just have to go back to doing this battle on my own, kind of thing, helping people out the best way I can. And it's not an issue because me being an atheist, what I say is I can more fully deprogram people, because a lot of people will leave a Christian group or Muslim group or whatever, and they never think to question, is there actually a God in the first place? I'm on Facebook, but the truth of the matter is I am an atheist. And you kind of feel, well, I have to sort of pretend to be a Christian, and it's a bit awkward, but life is awkward. Life is awkward. I think, as I mentioned in video 35, when you leave a cult, you might have this little fantasy of, well, if I read a couple of books on cults, well, I'll understand everything that's happened to me and life will be fine. I'll get a job, I'll get married, I'll have kids, life will be good. You know, that's what I was thinking 12 years ago. I thought, oh, thank goodness I've finally figured it out. You know, and it's like the pieces came together. I left the cult and, you know, no, there's no way back. There's no way back. Even though they're friendly people, I know I don't believe what they believe. But you kind of would like to be friends with these people. You know, but you know what they believe is just bonkers. But they're friendly. That's one of the reasons people do get trapped in a cult, is socially. Even if they don't believe the doctrine fully, as long as they're still going to the cult, as long as they're giving money to the cult, as long as they're useful to the cult, they might be good looking. And a cult leader isn't going to kick them out because they lure other people in. You know, guys come into the cult, they see a good looking woman, you know, she might not even believe the doctrine really, but the cult leader will use a bit of flattery, you know, tell her how amazing she is, a bit like Donald Trump kind of thing. Flattery will get you everywhere, it seems, with some people. And they will just use these, certainly in the London ICOC, back in the day, there was this footballer, you know, and he was a celebrity. And people would say, you know, inviting people, oh, are you into football? And somebody might say, yeah, I'm into football. Have you heard of la la la? Yeah, he's really good. Yeah, he's on the TV. And, oh, he's speaking at our church. He's one of our church members, yeah? Oh, right, okay. Oh, that's good. I like football. I'll come along. So they will pimp celebrities. I mean, Scientology are notorious for this, you know, but even the smaller groups, if they're lucky enough to recruit somebody who is famous. Recently in London ICC, the cult leader was trying to make friends with a famous boxer, Daniel Dubois, through his coach. So a cult leader trying to recruit somebody famous. And he did the same thing, this cult leader, when he went to Miami. I think it was last year. Might have even been the year before. He was trying to recruit a guy called David Goggins. So the cult spent tens of thousands of pounds, dollars, whatever, sending several leaders to this sort of macho man type self-help kind of thing to meet these celebrities, to try and recruit the celebrities, to use the celebrities to recruit other people into the cult. You know, and this happens. This happens. Have you heard of, you know, so, I mean, somebody might be being invited to a cult, and it's like the members say, oh, have you heard of so-and-so? Oh, yeah, I know them. Well, they're a member of our church. And then the person, oh, well, if they're part of the church, well, if Tom Cruise goes there, it must be all right then. You know, as if Tom Cruise is perfect in every area, you know, kind of thing. But it's when, I mean, this video is about the ironic thing of being an ex-member of a cult and then being shunned by other ex-members because you're an atheist. I mean, that was a funny one, that was. That was a funny dynamic. And yes, I think it deserved its own video. So that's another bizarre dynamic. You know, you might look for help, but because you're a West Ham fan, you're not going to get help from them. And then you think, God, you know, I mean, what goes through a person's mind? You know, one of the guys I've been trying to help, I actually, I might send him a message today. You know, he's suffering from depression, but he doesn't help himself. You know, it's like he's sort of seeking help, but then when you say, I'll help you, then he sort of backs off. So it's almost like when Jesus said to the person in the pool, do you want to get well? And then it's like, oh, well, it's other people's fault. I want to get well, but I've got some reason. There's so many dynamics when it comes to helping people out of cults.